What's up, everybody? My name is Mac, and I'm continuing my series on my upcoming Aconcagua expedition gear breakdown. Today, I'm going to be talking about my hand layers, particularly my glove system that I plan to bring to the expedition. Hope you all are doing well and you're safe and you're enjoying this nice cold weather. Here in New England, it's nice and cold. I will tell you that I am a little bit stressed out with a couple things in my life. I'm finishing up school. Work has been a little bit crazy for a variety of reasons. And, I'm obviously getting a little bit of the jitters leading up to my expedition. But I'm also sort of very excited at the same time. But there's a lot to sort of make sure I pack away and go over. So these gear breakdown videos are very helpful. Make sure I have all the gear laid out and all the gear that I want to bring to the expedition squared away. So I'm going to be bringing a total of 5 different pieces as part of my glove layering system for my expedition, and I'll be using them in a variety of different ways, so I'm going to go over them today. First and foremost, I am bringing a pair of these are like normal gardening gloves. These are very useful in the context of mountaineering. They have like a rubbery sort of water resistant palm that was really great for like handling a little bit of snow, grabbing your tools, doing whatever you need to do. Very grippy too. The cool thing about these is they cost like nothing. You can buy them at like Harbor Freight, or even probably Home Depot. Home Depot probably wouldn't be the cheapest option, but there's like a lot of places. I got these for like less than $5. I had another pair and they actually had a hole in them. It was a very small hole, and I was like, for $5, I might as well just replace and bring a brand new set to my expedition. Some people actually bring like multiple of these on a trip. Again, if they get a hole in them, I'm not really going to care over 20 days. I'll just toss them when I'm done with it. But super useful, something that if you're going to be doing mountaineering, particularly multiple days of mountaineering, this is a great option. Some people will bring the completely waterproof, and some of them are like insulated gloves like that. That's something that I've seen the uses for, but I just haven't justified buying it. And my team is actually bringing a pair of those to help with like water collection. So when you grab snow and you're like melting snow to filter water. But I've used this before, and even my bare hands, because you're picking up like big chunks of snow. It's not like you're just in the snow 24/7. That it's totally fine. I've definitely worked around it, but I may change my opinion on that in the future, so I'll definitely let you know. The other pair I'm bringing is a set of liner gloves. These are by a company called Gill. I believe they're a fishing company primarily. I liked these. My brother actually showed me them. They are super long in the cuff. They come like all the way down to here on me, which is nice because they can go underneath my jacket and cover more exposed skin. The only, I would say, it's like a pro and a con. It's like a downside is that they come with like, I guess because they're like a fishing glove, they come with like a very grippy palm all the way through the fingers, which is nice for like grabbing things and manipulating things, because when you're wearing lining gloves, even though you have more dexterity, you don't have the same dexterity as you would have with your bare hands. And so the ability to manipulate things like zippers is definitely amplified when you have like this grippy stuff. And particularly at higher elevations, past Camp 5, when we get into exposed areas, we want to change, maybe we're like covered areas and we want to like change layers. I think this is one spot called the cave is what they call it, which is like the last spot that you really have to where you have some cover and you can adjust your layering system for like the last push before you hit the summit. I'll definitely let you know if I'm like correct on that. But what I've been told is like that's the last chance before you're like out and exposed, and you're just going to have to keep going, where you can make sure that your layering system is the appropriate like level to shoot for the summit. So it's important to have a system ready for that purpose, and having the ability to not take my gloves off and not have exposed fingers at that sort of altitude as well as that sort of temperatures is very helpful. So the only challenge is getting my fingers into some of the gloves, but the system I'm bringing should be adequate for those needs, and it definitely worked, and I just need a little bit of practice. The other glove I'm bringing is a medium weight fixed insulation glove. Some people would call it a guide glove. Some people would call it a working glove. This is like my favorite glove. I actually use like a trimmer glove for this purpose. It's an REI version of the glove. A lot of companies make something like this, but they're super useful. This is the glove I wear the most, and I like wearing nothing in it, but I can wear a liner glove in it as well as needed. I actually wore these on Rainier. I will admit that, and I only brought these and a liner glove on Rainier. My fingers did get a little bit chilly on Rainier, particularly at the summit. But it wasn't that bad, and I did have like pockets when we were standing on the summits that I could like put my hands in my down jacket, so I made it work. But in an optimal situation, I would prefer to have a layer that I'll show you in a minute to also put on top of it. The other glove that I'm bringing, particularly because Aconcagua is not a very technical peak, so there's not a lot of work to be done in terms of like clipping into fixed lines. We're not even wearing harnesses. So I'm just opting for my big bulky mittens. So I have these pair of mittens. They are, I think they're down, but they could be synthetic. They're like a snowmobile mitten. They're by a company called FXR, a ride company. They're great. They've kept me warm on, they're pretty light, and they don't pack down that well compared to like a true down mitten, but you want them to be big and bulky and full of insulation. And that's what they do. They are pretty effective. I've even like put my like thumbprint in like very cold snow, and they handled themselves fine on Mount Washington. I actually remember like Mount Washington, I was wearing these. I didn't have a liner, I think because like I lost a liner or I lost one of my liners. And I was like climbing Mount Washington last time. I went up the Lion's Head Trail, so we're just climbing it. We weren't skiing it, and this just wasn't cutting it. And my hands were getting pretty cold. And all I had in my bag was these mittens, and so I had like bare hands. I adjusted my layers, and I put my hand in this, and my fingers actually ended up getting warm in this, which is very difficult to do in really cold environments, at least in my experience, to get your fingers like legitimately warm. And so like one thing that I'm really paranoid about is like, I remember as a kid, I would have instances where my fingers would get cold, and I think it's mostly like the trauma is like being like on the playground and you just don't really realize what you're doing as a kid. And then my fingers would get so cold, and then I couldn't get them warm, and then I would go inside and put them under water, and that would make it worse. So I'm really paranoid about my fingers freezing to where they're like not functional. Because I feel like your hands in particular are something that like, and your feet, but your hands in particular are something that you need dexterity, and you need to be able to use them for life-saving purposes, adjusting your layers, or manipulating carabiners, or fixing your trekking poles, or even like self-arrest, you know. So your hands are so crucial to the sport of mountaineering that, you know, losing the functionality of them is something that I'm just trying to avoid. So that's why I'm prioritizing warmth over dexterity by bringing my mittens. The last piece is something a little bit unique. I actually made these over mitts. I actually have two pairs of this. I had to get a little creative and make another pair for my brother. But these are, I think that the style of over mitts was very popular like a long time ago. But these are actually made from an old Army surplus over mitt. And they actually come with like a cotton or canvasy material here, but I replaced it with a synthetic jacket, and I actually added a little leash to it, which is really nice. The reason I made these was for Denali in particular, because Denali, there's a lot of times where you're going to be utilizing fixed lines or clipping into protection, meaning like lines that are, you know, fixed in, and you'll hook yourself to a rope so that you can move safely, and if you were to fall, you have something to catch you. With that, in your sort of clipping on or clipping off of different protection, you need dexterity. So I'm going to be wearing on Denali, hopefully when I go to Denali, I'll be wearing like fingered Gore-Tex thicker gloves. And you know, that worry of like being able to keep my hands warm but also manage that dexterity is I have created this over mitt that fits over a very thick Gore-Tex glove. So what I can do is put the leash on, put my Gore-Tex glove on, put this over mitt over top of it, basically making a very insulated mitten. And then when it's time to utilize fixed lines and protection, I can take off the over mitt, hook myself in, put the over mitt back on without slowing my team down at all. So that was sort of the thought process behind doing that. But the cool thing, and I'll just show you guys really quick, these big bulky mittens can actually fit pretty comfortably in this over mitt. So this just, when I wear them together, this makes essentially, I would say an 8,000 meter, you know, mitten, which is really nice. So this will help me grip the trekking pole, and then what I can do is also take the whole thing off. And the mittens, the construction of them actually makes them like pretty easy to get back on and off. So I can like basically take them, slip them back on pretty quickly. And that way, even with my down jacket, so I can just take them off and then do what I gotta do and then put them back on. So hope that's helpful. So yeah, that's my glove layering system for something like a simple mountaineering expedition. Because I have the overmitts, I would probably feel a lot more safe just bringing my fixed medium weight gloves, maybe a liner depending on the situation, and then bringing my overmitts because they don't weigh a lot and they can pack down pretty seamlessly in if the weather gets a little bit warm. But it really depends on the situation. Every mountain's different. You should look at the weather, look what you're expecting. There's an old saying that says you can pack your courage in your rucksack. I think Reinhold Messner said that, which basically means like, if you're really concerned about X, Y, or Z, you can pack like way too much stuff, which does have a negative effect of like weighing you down and making you slower. And I think that you should shoot for the goal of bringing the least amount of stuff to do the job effectively and safely. And that's a really hard line to find. The thing that's interesting about gloves is they don't weigh a whole lot. They're pretty small, and you can justify bringing something extra even if you don't use it. So again, it's really personal about like what you choose, and you should opt for the conservative route of bringing more stuff than less stuff. But as you get more experience, you should figure out what works really well for you, and be willing to sort of figure out that line between what exactly do you need. But at the end of the day, I would say that if you cut it really close, and if you're getting to a point where you go for a lighter glove system, and you get to a point where you feel like your glove system isn't adequate, then you should be confident and be willing to turn back. That's always always prioritize and go conservatively in mountaineering. There's a really famous mountaineer called Ed Viesturs, who's like arguably the greatest American mountaineer. And the thing that he always talks about, even though he accomplished, I think he climbed all 14 8,000 meter peaks. I think he was the first American to ever do it without oxygen. He always talked about how he failed a bunch of times in all of his speeches, where he said he was never afraid to turn back if he wasn't comfortable with the situation or the conditions or whatever. So if you take that approach, you can really enjoy the mountains, and you can enjoy having a lot of successes through failure. And I will tell you that I've technically failed, a few summits in my lifetime, and I never regretted turning back because that was the right thing to do at the time. And so, yeah, that's what I would just say. I hope this was really helpful. Have a great one. I have a couple more videos and they coming out. I think the leg layers, I pretty much have those dialed in to what I'm going to do. I have to make some last minute decisions on that, but I have everything I need to make that video. I also am going to be doing a video on sort of the miscellaneous gear. That's going to be a little bit boring, but maybe helpful to you guys that are gearing up for an Aconcagua expedition. And that's about it. I might be putting out more videos beyond this about general mountaineering. So really appreciate all the views. Thanks again for checking me out. If you like what I'm doing, feel free to subscribe. If not, no problem. Thanks a lot. Have a good one. Peace.